Justin Grammens and Donna Heral are our two panelists. As I mentioned, Justin has helped me put on the two prior events that we covered AI. And again, a reminder for the 10th time, this is for you and the questions that you might have. Justin is founder and CEO of Lab 651, which is a leader in mobile web and artificial intelligence. He is involved probably in more things than I am, and there aren't very many people in the Twin Cities area that I can say that about. I saw 24 things on his LinkedIn bio, and so that's a lot going on. And then I know there's a couple of people who work with Justin at Lab 651 and the Applied AI Conference. So I think I have two people in the audience. Raise your hand. Okay, one over here and the second one there. So anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about Justin's world, you can talk to them as well. And then Donna Heral is the founder and chief igniter. I want to know a little bit about that title and how I can get that, because it's a super cool title. Blue Phoenix Learning, a training, coaching, and consulting firm in the areas of change management, learning, training, and content development. And AI is one of her areas of expertise. And then probably more importantly, they've done some events together and have a great rapport. And we're going to do some good riffing today. So she's spoken with Justin before on AI and human capital. And so that was how we ended up with this panel today. All right, so why don't we start with me just giving you a minute or two to add a little color to what I said about your backgrounds. And Justin, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thank you, Rick, and thank you everyone for being here today. This is truly an honor to be able to see everyone's face here, see all the interest in artificial intelligence. I mean, this is something that I've been following for many, many years. And we're at this really interesting sort of pivotal moment, I think, where a lot of people are getting on board and they're trying to understand what this means to them. And I view artificial intelligence as just this general purpose technology. And so it's going to impact our lives no matter what industry you're in, no matter your age, no matter your socioeconomic background, everything like that. It's going to have such an impact. So I'm really excited just to see all these people that are here and they want to learn the most about it. So Rick mentioned I have a company called Lab 651. We do custom software development. I also have another company that I've formed called Recursive Awesome, where I do strategic artificial intelligence consulting with companies, so how they can bring AI into their organization to improve efficiency and automation. And then the most important thing that I'm really, really proud of is we have a thriving community here in the Twin Cities. And if you don't have one of these, I hope you can take one home. But it's called Applied AI. And we started back in 2019. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, and it's for people that are interested in artificial intelligence, no matter what your background is. So we do monthly meetups, the first Thursday of the month. Donna spoke last month. We also do a conference. May 10th is our big conference coming up. And then I do a podcast and have people on the podcast. All this is completely free. We have a YouTube channel, all that sort of stuff. So please take one of those things, get the word out. If you haven't been to any of our events, they're super fun. And, thank you, Rick, and everyone at Club E here, just to allow me to let people know what's going on. I still talk to people. They're like, we need to start an AI community in the cities. And I said, well, we have one. So I need to get better at marketing. I think that's the main thing. Justin needs to learn how to market better. But yeah, I hope that the discussion doesn't end here, and the questions don't end here. And I guess one final thing I was going to say is while this is sort of pitched as a Q&A, I'm hopeful that it's maybe a dialogue, because I see other faces out there that know a lot about this as well, right? So I don't want to come across as the sage on the stage or anything like that. I certainly am studying this. It certainly is a passion of mine, and I spend a lot of time in it. And I guess the one final thing is I am an educator at heart. I teach at the University of St. Thomas as well. I teach a class on machine learning and artificial intelligence there too. So I ultimately, in my soul, I really am passionate about people learning things. So thank you for what's ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Donna.
Love it. So great to be here, Rick. Thanks so much for this event and to Club E and for everybody who's in the room. First and foremost, I do have to give the Applied AI Conference and Group a big plug. Justin doesn't do himself enough service. So this is a big conversation. But it's also a big shift in how business works, how we think, how we interact. And so instead of being fearful or waiting, engage curiosity, and be a learner again. I think that's probably the biggest piece, and if you're not sure how to do that, dial in with the Applied AI community. It's fabulous. In terms of how do you get to be a chief igniter, you declare it and make it so. That's what you do. You just decide one day, and there it is. So specifically my background, I spent a little over 20 years in training, learning and development, corporate L&D. But I also worked throughout the hospitality industry, specifically elevating the use of technology in training, getting workers to do what workers need to do to drive the business forward, and kind of ripping out the complexity in our business. So that had been my sweet spot for a long time over the past year. Of course, with that background, you can't try to make things faster, better, smarter without doing some stuff in AI. And here we are. So an example of that as well, in my other life, I'm a co-founder of a small health benefits organization, Savvy AI, where we're applying those skills of how do we use what's now available with AI to solve the most complex problems in a way that's truly human designed. So that's the nutshell, and I'm passing it back, Rick. Thank you.
Okay, so two short kickoff questions. So Justin, I'm going to go back to, I don't remember if it was the first time you were here or the second time you listed, hey, here's where AI can step in. It was 3 or 4 things that here's an ideal scenario that I think might add it as a good foundation to kick things off.
Yeah. So typically when companies come to me, they're like, what's a good use case, And you could sit there and ponder and think about all these various use cases, both personal and professional, and sort of go down this rabbit hole. And what I really talk to companies about is here's sort of the 3 guidelines that I focus on. Do you have something where humans are doing something that they're not so good at? Is it a repetitive task? Is it very, very detail-oriented? Something where if a human makes a mistake, which we are very good at, you could automate that in some capacity. So human, tasks that they're spending time doing on over and over again. Do you have a situation where you have a lot of data, right? So these systems need to feed off data. And if there's not enough data, you're going to see a lot of bad results, right? So think about in your, whatever the process is, whatever your company's doing, you need to make sure that you have enough data in that capacity. And then also, they work really, really well if there's a begin state and an end state, right? And so we might have heard of this term called machine learning, but the whole concept is you don't need to figure out what's happening in the middle. And that's really what artificial intelligence is good at, is it understands where I need to start and what I need to do at the end, and let the system do what the system needs to do. So regardless of what your organization does, do you have those sort of 3 things going on right now? Humans doing stuff that they're not so good at. Do you have a process going on where you have a start state and an end state? That is very, very ripe for this change. And then do you have a lot of data? And so that can span into a lot of different areas, but and if you can hit all 3, ideal, perfect. But even if you hit 1 or 2 of those, I think there are some really, really good opportunities for us to take a look at artificial intelligence. The other thing that I would say that I talk to companies about is sometimes you don't need it. I had somebody come to me and they basically, so they were dealing in hardware, computer hardware. And they say, look, we get a whole bunch of used disk drives. We need to turn around and resell them. I want to apply AI to this. And I got into their system and I looked at it and I'm like, no, this is just regular data science. Like, just use the data science tools that everyone has done today using logistic regression, right? So sometimes it doesn't fit. And that's one thing I do want to say is this whole idea of ChatGPT, let's throw ChatGPT at everything, right? At the end of the day, there are really, really good use cases and there's really, really bad use cases for it. And so I think you need to step back, whether you engage with a consultant or the other option is just experiment and learn. It's not the answer to everything. But I would say if you're hitting those sort of 3 key points, those are systems that I would look at and they might be right for AI.
Okay, and then Donna, for you, your background with the training, coaching, learning, et cetera, from a kind of human capital perspective, what's kind of one thing that you can share with everybody as to how AI might help organizations do things better and serve their people better?
Sure. There's a lot of use cases, and there's some very simple and obvious ones that sometimes we overlook. So, for example, when I work with organizations and really talk with their people, I hear the same thing pretty consistently. There's more work than there is time in the day, and every time I open my email, I feel like I'm getting punched in the nose. And the reality is, what we don't always understand in business is there are up-and-coming individuals in the workplace who are hiring coaches to learn how to do email, because their parents never emailed them, for example. Their teachers didn't email them. And so I use that as an introduction to the idea that AI solutions can help us do the most meaningful work and help us either identify and automate, or in some cases eliminate, the unnecessary distractions that prevent us from our highest productivity and our biggest impact. So, things like communication systems. I use email because it's the obvious example. But that exists in text, that exists in chats, that exists in going into meetings and no one can figure out where the master file is. So just some of those very basic inefficiencies start with, what's the problem we're solving, right? Is it not enough time in the day? Is it too much work? Is it lack of organization? Or is it tight time frames? And this is probably the most common use case. Tight time frame for something critical that has to happen, and people of high talent burn most of their time with the minutiae and not the bulk of their time in doing great work with high creativity. Let AI do the minutiae. So the time that we put into the project, the presentation, the business, the innovation, the ideation is truly spent delivering the best outcome, not churning the butter on the back end.
Okay, great. All right, the floor is yours. Wendy.
Hi, I'm a film producer, and there's a lot of concern around ChatGPT or other AI programs writing scripts as the whole big chunk of the whole SAG, writers building their contract dispute this year. What stop gaps do you believe there are to not allow that to happen? And how do you share credit with the computer? Not financially, I mean, credit matters.
So I'm going to take what she said and go yes and. So script writing is one use case. People ask the same question about picking stocks, about writing code, stuff like that. Things that there's a certain amount of repetitiveness to it, yet needs creativity. So maybe just kind of talk about that general theme. Go ahead.
I'd be happy to jump in first. I'll take the easy part and then leave the hard stuff for Justin. That's my MO. I think there's two things at play. First and foremost, I think there's some confusion about how good AI is in creativity. Justin spoke earlier about you have to have a lot of data, first state, desired end state. AI is very good at taking a data set and applying it to different situations. Generally said, AI can create, but AI can't dream. That is a uniquely human skill. And so when we talk about script writing, I see it more as a partnership. I work with different knowledge-based organizations, not specifically to the film industry. But we've had conversations that say, look, how long do you think you can hold the wall, New York Times? I mean, for real, like that, and we don't have those answers. So the different question is, in an industry, how do you evaluate the opportunities to let AI control what it does control, what it currently has access to? What stop gaps do you put in place? IP is a whole nother ball of wax in this environment, and it is not solved. But how do you handle the IP side? And then how do you allow creatives to do the uniquely powerful human work where it's not am I being beat by the machine, but it's rather in terms of script work, how do we do that, our work differently, more creatively, and more richly? But I don't think there's ever a place where AI will literally write a best film. That's going to be, they might have the building blocks, but a human's going to come in and take good to great.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is one of the biggest sort of things that changed the perspective of AI over the past couple of years. Once people started using it, and I want to say AI versus generative AI, right? So generative AI is a different can of worms. That's really what we saw happen with ChatGPT. It was like, oh my gosh, this thing is actually generating video, It's actually generating photos. It's actually generating words. And that was something that we kind of always thought was unique to humans. Like, oh, don't worry, they'll never be able to generate code for me, right? I've written code for 25 years. Well, I will tell you, it writes damn good code, right? It actually does write damn good code. And the thing that I have said, and I've seen over the past year or so as I've been using this tool when I'm writing code, is I view it as a companion, kind of like what you're saying, Donna. It's a companion to what I do. It's not actually architecting the system. It doesn't actually take the user requirements in. It doesn't understand how a human is actually going to interface with the software. Really, really good at writing the minutia, and really, really good at giving me new ideas. In fact, I will say that I'm 100% more productive today when I'm on a project, when I'm using code or something like that. Basically, Copilot is the one that I use, that it writes code for me to get a place to start. So I'm not threatened by it at all. I view it as just a leveling up of my skill set. I also view it as probably people that come into the industry now with only a couple years of experience, now they can level up, right? So if somebody is just coming out of acting school or whatever, and they need to get new ideas of things that they want to do, I think this is a beautiful tool. I think it's actually really, really good to allow people to essentially learn from an agent, an AI. So as you were asking that question, I was just thinking, so here's a good example. So I actually went this past weekend, Second City was here. They did an improvisational thing at St. Kate's. And if you haven't seen improv, these people need to come up with stuff on the fly, right? Something comes in from the audience, and they just need to come up with it, right? On the fly. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and you can just see the neurons firing in these people's heads, right? They are on it. And they are coming up with things that are just fantastic. And it's not what they said, it's how they said it, right? So all this audio probably could have come in and an AI could have generated something, but what really hit home to me when I watched these people, because I literally went home and I'm like, ChatGPT, let's do an improv act together. And I go back and forth with ChatGPT all day, right? It will come up with stuff and it'll dream that stuff up. But I'm like, no. That's not where this is powerful. It's the human aspect of these people on stage that are actually interacting with each other on a split-second notice and reading each other's faces and taking this whole dialogue off to a different space. And I'm like, that's not going to be replaced. I just don't think that it's. And so it comes down to the acting and all that type of stuff. Yes, people are going to use these tools to generate new scripts. They're going to write full scripts. There's going to be full feature-length movies out there. There's probably going to be movies that are already going to have completely generated top-down all the way with video and everything like that. But I think it's going to miss that thing that I saw last weekend at Second City. There was something uniquely human about that was just such a changing experience for me. And I'm like into AI, and I'm like, I don't see an AI replacing that experience that I had tonight. So that's my perspective. I thought it was really, really interesting.
Yeah. And if I could add just, because I think one of your questions as well was attribution. And while it's not defined, kind of the standard that I use is if it's 100% AI generated, you should say that. Because it's fair and right. It's not a cop-out, it's just awareness. Because we don't take credit for each other's work. And it's not about, I don't want to take credit from the AI. I do. But it's really about, I don't want to misrepresent who I am as an individual. But when it's the AI collaborative partner, I think that's a platform. I mean, I don't stand up and say, hey, I made this flyer with Canva. I take credit. I mean, I don't. Justin made the flyer, but I don't take credit for the platform. So when it's AI assisted, I think I don't know that that's dramatically different than I found it on Google. I pulled it out of an encyclopedia. So I think attribution has to do with who actually produces the final content. Is it appropriate to say AI assisted? Maybe. Will there probably be some guardrails? Sure. And I think that's appropriate, but I think as individuals, we get credit for the work we do, and we dream, and we are creative. AI can manufacture, humans create.
Can we throw that to Jeff O'Brien, my attorney?
Yes.
IP attorney, the word should is disconcerting to me because there should be world peace.
Agreed, man.
All right, other questions? Here, Will.
Are startups at a significant advantage today because of AI versus years past? And can you share some examples of how startups have really leveraged it to jumpstart the whole life cycle?
Okay, the question, if you didn't hear it in the back, was about startups, and are they at an inherent advantage using AI because of the stage they are and the gestation and the life cycle? And so how can AI either support or help early stage companies and the formation of such companies?
Well, so my mind is always sort of technically bent, right? I'm always sort of thinking about the technology. And so, one of the startups that I started, I was sharing with some people, was around allowing people to become better presenters, right? And so we got into the ed tech space where we're talking with people that are coaches or that are professors at universities that teach MBA classes. So we provided a tool to them that allows their students to come in, and the computer vision watches them, and are you smiling while you're presenting? Right? Are you using a wide range of vocabulary? Are you saying a lot of ums and ahs, which I do a lot of? Do you talk really fast, right? So we built this for less than $100,000, right? And we built this system riding on top of existing technology that Amazon already provides to people. So rewind the clock back, 5 years or so, very hard to build, right? Very, very hard, very, very expensive to build. Something as simple as, are you smiling or looking at the camera? Those are things that now a company like mine can pay for pennies, whereas if you have to build that from scratch. So from a technology standpoint, yes, absolutely. I mean, and that's not really even AI per se. It's just inherently everyone is sort of creating software as a service or platform as a service platforms. So I think where AI comes in is there would have had to been, and this is the reason why our product really kind of started gaining a lot of interest, is because as a coach or as a professor, you have to sit there and watch students. You might go through 100 presentations, and that is very, very human intensive, right? So, the interesting part was this is actually an ROI on this thing. Like, you could literally calculate a professor at an MBA program has just saved 200 hours this semester because they pushed it off to the AI. Now, the AI doesn't answer the problem for them. I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but it doesn't answer the problem for them. It gets the students to a certain point, and then this teacher comes back in, right? And so it's the idea of an assistive technology like we're talking about. Let's get rid of the mundane stuff, get them in a certain, only saying 1 or 2 ums and ahs a minute, only speaking at, 120 words a minute, not 240 words a minute, stuff like that. So we're able to sort of help students do that, or teachers do that. And yes, on a startup budget, actually, we were totally able to do that. Now, I flip around to the other side of saying, well, geez, what if I wasn't a technology play, right? So what if I'm opening a flower shop, right, for example? And what I would encourage you is start experimenting with the tools. But obviously, when it comes to marketing, writing marketing content, you have to know what you want to say. It's not going to make up what your business plan is or what your business story is, but absolutely can help there. Finance. Sales. I mean, I've got tons of examples of where it can help your small business. And literally, if you type in a problem that you're searching in your business and type AI, you're going to find a company that will likely try and solve it for you. And the beautiful part that I think that I think is, like, a lot of this stuff is free to try. There's so many freemium options out there. So one of the things that's on here is a podcast, right? So I do this podcast every couple weeks. I use AI to write the liner notes. I use AI to actually generate the images. I use AI to do the transcript. There's a lot of things that I'm already bringing in because it's just me. It's just me doing. So I'm kind of running my own little small business here and leverage the tools. So generally, yes, I think there's a huge advantage for anyone starting a business to be able to find these tools. And I think that you just got to kind of search and look for them. I see Lori raised her hand. Were you going to ask or say something? Yes.
Okay, if you didn't hear it in the back, the question is, what kind of information are you willing to share with these tools? And I don't think that's just a startup question. In fact, it's a board-level conversation at companies that are quite large as well. So question is probably higher level, safety, security, and what information can or cannot or should not be used.
My governing rule of thumb, as I said, kind of when I meet with individuals and we talk exactly about that, especially if your business is grounded in intellectual property, Don't be putting it out, and I mean, it's like anything else, right? Like if I got an offer for a free parking pass and I had to give up my social security number, that feels bad. The same thing's true in the world of AI. So if you're using kind of the free, I can pick them up and I can go for it, be mindful that there is a cost to just passing your data. And yeah, there's reassurances. We don't really do things. You have no idea who's coming in the back end and where this bad boy's going. So there are some ways to do that, and I would always say reach out and get, and that is a case where I would reach out and really get some expert guidance from somebody who really understands exactly how do I leverage the power of these AI tools, but never pass my data. And there's some different things you can do within that, but you have to, when you talk about, like, if I'm a small business owner, what do I put in? Kind of my rule of thumb is, look, if anyone could find it on the internet, look it up themselves, assemble it, or this is drawing on my restaurant experience, if I put it in the hands of 500 employees who weren't coming to work next month, it's probably out there. I'm kind of over myself. But if it's proprietary information, I would keep that more closely held. And I would either build a bridge or I would bring the functionality into a closed system. So that's my 2 cents.
I see a hand here in the front.
Well, I wanted to say I was in artificial intelligence and expert systems in 1989. And one of the companies that was out there at that time that built all their back-end systems on an AI platform was, people in the room will know of it. It's Mrs. Fields Cookies. And this Mr. Fields was a big IT person that wasn't called that. It was IS. Anyway, Mr. Fields had created all the systems that were AI based, you know, to put out his franchises across the United States. And it was a very successful company, and it was, the background was AI.
Yeah, I love that.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to follow up because I think there was one piece that kind of started this conversation, which was the startup versus legacy business. And for those of you that are really looking at what are truly the advantages of leveraging AI, I would just challenge you to look at 2 things. If you're looking at that competitive position, legacy organizations, in many cases, have a tremendous amount of tech debt. I love that Mrs. Fields Cookies got it right early. And I know many organizations in the hospitality industry built great systems because there was no turnkey tech solutions in the marketplace. When if you were building systems in the 80s, even into the early 90s, that was true. But now fast forward to today, if you haven't done a really good job of putting together how all your systems work and talk, and 3 people and a hamster are keeping it going, you're behind compared to a startup that can build its infrastructure right from the ground up. So I think that's one of the differentiators. And then I think the other differentiator is if you're in a legacy organization where you have not bothered to train tech, you just assume that people observe it because they walk into a computer every day. I think startups have access to a level of talent capital that can help them navigate the shortcomings of how to actually apply it wisely in their business. So, okay, back to you, Justin.
Kind of hopping around. I did want to say about your data and where it goes. There are options to run large language models locally, right? So we've done that within our organization. We've helped companies set up basically on premise, and your data never goes anywhere. In fact, you can even unplug it from the internet, and you can interact with the large language models locally. And I will say the other thing is, think about what this AI needs to understand. One of the things that is happening this year, and it's been happening for a little while, is this idea of very, very specific language models, very, very specific knowledge base, right? ChatGPT is amazing because it's pulled in so much data, right? You can ask it just about any question. But if you're in a business that is in a specific industry, the better path forward in a lot of ways is to potentially just train it on your data, and it becomes very, very smart at what you do. And that can be much more cost effective. That can actually be, you can get better results. And then it can sort of forget about all of this worry about where your data goes into the cloud, right? You can actually run it within your infrastructure. So I'm seeing companies evaluate that. and think about, okay, we don't need to boil the ocean with this thing. This thing just needs to be very, very good at what my business does. And a lot of it is already in the entrepreneur's head. Hopefully it's been written down somewhere. You see chatbots are really, really good examples of that. And we've helped companies build chatbots that are very, very nice and tight around their information, and it can be very, very cost effective. I think the other thing that you're going to see is read the terms of service, right? So OpenAI does actually provide an enterprise level. Don't use the free stuff. If you use the free stuff, then all bets are off. But I will say that there is a cost per month that you can go to, and you can read their terms of service. And if you believe it, all your data's in Azure, Microsoft, all your data's in Google anyways, that might be an option for you. There's a lot of worry about my stuff's going to show up on the internet. Well, they're legally bound to not have that happen. So, pay for it. There are enterprise licenses that will put you that will give you a little bit of peace of mind.
Hey, let's go back about Adam, I'll try to get back to you. Let's go back about 3/4 of the way back. Yeah, in the middle there. Yeah.
My name's Mike. We have a lot of clients that might be in a little bit more legacy industries like manufacturing, fabrication. They're not IT, maybe they're marketing companies, stuff like that. And I think I heard, but I'm not quite sure, so I'm just trying to validate it. Company says, I need to get on AI. I know this chat GPT, that's about all I know on AI. Give me 2 or 3 steps to help them start implementing AI in their industries.
Okay, so to rephrase the question as well, say it to anybody who couldn't hear, is basically how does somebody get started, especially for legacy businesses, especially where there's infrastructure there. And that probably could have its own 2-hour conversation. So maybe just 1 or 2 things to just get somebody going a little bit.
So in legacy business, step 1 is define if it's wonderfully interesting or actually helpful. So first question is, like, I've heard about, you talk about I'm in a warehousing or manufacturing, I want to use AI, what do I need to do to get started? The follow-up question is, what do you want it to do? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Because the use is so broad. And you can waste a lot of time and not do any work. So if I'm in a manufacturing environment, for example, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Let me think about that. One of the things that's a problem is when we're on the floor and the machines are running and something breaks, we have to stop production because we have to go find the expert who knows exactly what screwdriver to use to make the belt go again. And it feels like that could be better. Great. So an AI solution there might be actually codifying the process, right? And that's not necessarily a ChatGPT answer, but there's some really great tools where you can have an expert literally do it on video. Video can understand it, or you can even just use the video. But then AI can come behind that. Chuck E. Cheese has an example where they've done exactly that. They've taken augmented reality, if you know the skee ball machine. They've taken the skee ball machine, but now any worker anywhere can walk up with a smart device, hold it up to the machine, and they've loaded, based on that tagged image, directional touch and go. What seems to be making noise? This is great. Here's the pop-up directional video for Fix, for example. So step 1, what do you want it to do? And then step 2 is some designed exercises around it. Very narrow use case. So if we want to solve fixing the widget, then let's pause for a moment and use that for experimentation. The second thing you can do to get started is even just host some lunch and learns and small workshops. Make it less scary. I've done those with many clients, friends, and nonprofits, where you just walk in a room, everybody pop up your laptop, and here's what we're trying to do, and we're all just going to do it together, and we're going to screw it up together. And I'm going to show you it's okay to not know how to use it, but be curious.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, again, define the problem and do small, low-cost experiments is what I like to talk to companies about. Like, what is this most simplest thing that we can try and do that's going to move the needle forward? I think that, as you were saying that, I was wondering about, like, ChatGPT, could you explain the problem that you're having within your business and then ask it to give you some suggested solutions, right? That's what's beautiful about these tools, is you can actually say, how would you solve this? Give me some ideas. And so you might even just uncover business use cases that you hadn't even thought of just by using ChatGPT. And not so much that ChatGPT is going to solve it for you, but again, it's more of an ideation tool. As I talked to some of these other people, I did work with a company that does metal signage. And so it was an interesting solution where they have been doing this for 20 years. They do large signs you see on the outside of buildings. And they have all the sort of cost of the materials, how much the project ended up being, what did they bid it for, where was it, who was, where did they buy the metal from? They had all this stuff. And so I was talking with the CEO, and we basically found a plugin that he could use in Google Sheets that allowed him just to ask questions about this thing based on all their data that was there. And I was like, wow, now I've empowered this person who's not the CFO. I've empowered this person in this organization who's not the CFO to basically start asking questions. And they fed it into their sales organization as a quoting tool, right, based on data that's there. So, there are aspects of that where it's like, wow, I didn't really know that was possible, but let's just kind of try it out. Let's do some Googling around and see what we can find. So there's some really interesting stuff in the manufacturing space.
Yeah, one thing too that I think gets missed, and Justin and I've talked about this, is look, AI is more than ChatGPT. The reality is, if you're a business that uses Google, slow down for a minute and go figure out what Google did, because Google's done some stuff. Like you can get transcriptions, you can record meetings in your Google Meets. You can use Google to actually query information across basically a database. Like, show me everything that has to do with this client or this idea or this product or that uses this name of problem. So some of it is just slowing down enough to know that you don't actually have to learn all the new cooliness with AI. The companies that you subscribe to are highly motivated to bring you tools that make work easier with AI. So it's just understand what they are and how to use them, like Copilot, for example. Yeah.
All right. Let's give everybody in the back. Jim, you had the stock question, correct?
Yes.
What?
I have a lot of clients that are interested in the space, interested in investing in the space, not using applied stuff. Which publicly traded companies do you see as the most favorably positioned that have most of their business in the AI space?
Okay, thanks, Jim. In case nobody heard that, Jim's in the asset management business, and he was curious about public companies that might be doing better than others, but the full disclaimer here, these are not stock pickers. I, of course, am not recommending any particular stocks, but as you look at the industry from afar, what are some interesting, if any, public companies that you've noticed?
Yeah, I was talking with somebody earlier, and we were basically talking about, NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA stock's up 2,000% over the past year and whatnot, and he's like, oh, I kind of missed out on that. And the fact of the matter is there's the things that's in the data center, AMD, processors like that. There's the people that are going to be churning away to build that. I think that's okay. What I told him is follow the data, right? So Tesla is the example that I gave him. Tesla's not a car company. Tesla's an AI company. You realize how much footage they have of people's driving experience and what the road conditions are like, and they've been working really, really hard on building self-driving cars. But it comes down to the data. It comes down to all of our driving habits and all of the information that they can actually turn around and sell. So I would start there. Like, who has got the data? And it's the big players, right? It's the Googles, it's the Microsofts, it's the Amazons, it's the Teslas. But follow the trail of the data, and that is really, I would say, that's the oil. They say data is the new oil. They've been saying this for quite some time. But as I said, these AI systems, they need to have the data. So whoever controls that data really sort of controls the entire ecosystem. You're going to have startups that are going to come up with some new crazy algorithm, right? It's just going to be blazingly fast. They're going to come up and be able to do stuff. In fact, there is a local company here in town that I know that is doing stuff at like, 100th the wattage of what most other companies are doing. So there are lots of opportunities like that in that space. And there's high flyers and there's ones that are just going to completely be smoke and mirrors. But I would say just in general, I don't have a stock pick for you, but look for companies that have the data because they're the ones that are going to own the market.
I will probably not use the names of companies either, although NVIDIA came quickly to mind. I think the second thing to really look for is keep in mind, as we have this explosion of AI, AI doesn't exist in the ether. There's backend, so that's part of, NVIDIA had just frankly the best chips. And so things like communication speed, storage, bandwidth, AI is kind of a process hog. And so as you continue to see more and more use of AI and AI-assisted tools, you've got to really look at like what infrastructure transmits, uses tremendous amounts of large file data faster on demand than it ever has before. And I think that that's a problem to solve, but I think it's an opportunity to watch.
Okay, so a couple things. We ran out of time again. I see a lot of hands come up. So as a favor to me and to our panelists, if you're willing to, why don't you come up afterwards? I'll jot these questions down. We'll have some sort of communication about them and we'll put them back to you. So that will hopefully get some of the questions that we didn't get to. It is 1 o'clock. People got to run. If you can stay for just a moment or two, I want to do a couple of kind of wrap-up questions, and then who knows, maybe we'll do a fourth one of these. Anyway, all right, so lightning round, like 30-second answer. For all the people out here, we heard a little bit about a primer, but as business leaders think about the next couple of years, what's one little bit of advice that you could say, hey, do this, and it will kind of prep you and pave the way for what you think is going to happen over the next couple of years?
Build in AI learning into your weekly schedule, at least 25 to 30 minutes. Read an article, do a tutorial, do something to get and stay current.
That's what I was going to say, experiment. Just experiment. And attend our meetups and our conference. Learn from each other.
And then did you hear something earlier in your career that you wish you would have heard even earlier?
Yeah, one of the things I heard early in my career that I wish I would have gotten at Jump was ask questions when you have them, instead of just struggling along to figure it out.
Yeah, I guess I would just say basically the sense of always being a lifelong learner. I remember leaving college and thinking, I'm done learning, right? I don't need to do this anymore. And 10 years later, I realized, no, there's a lot to learn. So I would say continue to learn. And then continue to engage with the community. So I think it's beautiful what Rick has done here with Club E and everything. Just get out and network with people. It'll completely change your life. And I wish I would have learned that earlier. I was kind of in my own little cocoon for the first 10 years, and then I broke out.
And then last question, what's one thing that you'd like the audience to take with them as they leave today about the topic? I'm sure there are other things, but like the parking ticket.
I have many. I think the one thing that I would invite you to leave with today is AI is not coming. It has been here a long time. If you used Google Maps, you're an AI expert. That's just the way it is. And so as you leave here today, I hope that you're renewed to not get distracted by the shiny things, but get encouraged and curious about the interesting things that can truly help you in your business.
Yeah, I think curiosity is huge. I think there's another quote that I was thinking about by a guy named Seth Godin, and he said, whoever fails the most wins, right? And so I think one of the things, it kind of ties into like earlier in my career too as well, I was so afraid of failing. But I think as small business owners and in this new technology, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail along the way. And it's not an AI thing specifically, but what I would encourage you to do is just try. And not be so worried about trying and failing. And you might find an AI solution that just doesn't do what you need it to do. That's all right. You maybe wasted a week, maybe a month, maybe a year on something, but it's okay. It's okay. And like I say, it's the people that realize that they failed and then they pick it up and start over again. Those are the people that win.
All right, reminder, first Thursday in March, Raising Capital, right here. That's March 7th. Got a wonderful box of chocolates if somebody wants to weave a good story to try to earn that, and I'll introduce you to Mary. I want to thank our fabulous sponsors. Darren Lynch came in late. Darren, raise your hand. Irish Titan. And then Barb over here from Highland Bank. Barb, raise your hand up high. Yeah, all right. You want to see Barb on any banking needs for Highland Bank? Thank you for being here, and let's give a round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rick.